it was bad to the point where I was scared. I couldn't deal with my stuff, life, whatever was going on. I was that type of person. I couldn't just have one. If we're going to have one, we're going to close the bar down and I'm going to be buying shots just to keep people at the bar. How I started to notice it was becoming a problem was, and a lot of addicts will talk about this, that same circle, that same thing keeps happening, that same story that we don't want to listen to or tell anymore. It just kept happening. And I couldn't figure out why this story kept playing. And
Can you elaborate on that story?
so the story was,
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Willpower Podcast. I'm sure a lot of you out there are starting your sobriety journey, or you maybe be well along in your sobriety journey. And if you're just starting, then I'm really glad that you're here today because we're going to have a really honest conversation. I met this person just recently through Steve, who was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. That episode, people have seemed to really like it. It's one of the more popular ones. So if you haven't yet, check out Steve's episode with me. But today, this is Robbie Pike, everybody. Hi, Robbie.
I am well. Thanks for having me. Glad to be
Of
here.
course. Yeah, of course. If you could, Robbie, it'd be really cool if you could just give us a little backstory about yourself.
Yeah. I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. Parents divorced when I was about 7 years old. Everything was great until about then. Mom still loved and cared for me. Then on my dad's side, it kind of went on a little weird course where he immediately had another lady living in the house a couple of weeks after him and my mom split. And, with what I know now, that's the road that started down my path of cannabis use and alcohol. I started using cannabis when I was about 15 years old, peer pressure, friends. I had drank a few times, just, picking up the empty beer bottles or glasses or whatever from parents' parties, and every once in a while had some drinks. But my alcohol didn't become a problem till about 2020, 21 that I could recognize. I'm sure it was a problem before that, but it was about 2020, 2021 where I started to recognize my alcohol issue.
Yeah. So right after legal drinking age is when you started to notice that there were some issues?
No, so I'm 46. It was about a good 30 years before I started realizing my issue.
Yeah.
The career I was in. So cannabis has always been my go-to drug of choice. I didn't drink much, social drinker when I was younger, but I always would get high living in Colorado at the time when it was medical, then became rec.
Right.
Rec, it was easy to get my hands on. And the career I was in at the time was heavily drug tested every quarter, random drug tests. So I knew how to play that game real quick, figure out what day they drug tested, then kind of be close to the day. I'd quit sometimes, or I'd have some other stuff.
And that's hard, right? To not to pass a drug test when you have marijuana in your system. Doesn't it stay like in the fat cells and things like that? And it's really hard to get out.
Yeah, for cannabis, it depends how heavy a user you are. It can be in your system for a long time. Whereas cocaine, methamphetamines, and some other drugs, they don't live too long in your system. So I was always
the half-life
dirty.
is a lot smaller. Yeah. So you were smoking a little pot when you were younger. Okay. That was kind of your go-to. You said you were a social drinker. Were you going out to like parties and stuff like that, and then you would drink, but that wasn't an issue or anything?
Yeah. So I would, when I turned 21, I would drink when we go to the bar or parties and stuff like that. I never really liked to drink by myself, anything like that. I found I would get so high that I'd get paranoid, then the social anxiety would kick in. And I found that using alcohol, would lubricate that a little bit and that anxiety would go away. So that's how I always played the game with alcohol. I would get really, really high till I didn't feel comfortable. And then I'd start drinking to kind of change it up a little bit. Then, so that's where I started, my drinking came in. Then as I got older, I was using cannabis, a lot of times from the time I woke up to the time I went to sleep. So I was always altering my mind. Then I, had some stuff in life happen, and I would find myself start drinking a lot more.
Yeah.
Still hardly ever alone, but there was something that I was missing in life. And, I found by going to the bar and hanging out with coworkers or friends, I was getting something that I was missing.
Yeah, you're getting connection, right? Everyone kind of craves connection one way or another. You were saying earlier about how it wasn't an issue. Can we just, like, when did it start to become an issue for you?
It started becoming an issue. Geez, it was about 6 years ago. Started becoming an issue. The issue was,
Yeah.
I was going out a lot when I get off work with coworkers and all that other stuff. So I started drinking more often. Sometimes it'd be 4 or 5 times in a week. Then the next week, it could be just the weekends. But my cannabis use was always there. So it was just the game. And how I started to notice it was becoming a problem was, and a lot of addicts will talk about this, that same circle, that same thing keeps happening. That same story that we don't want to listen to or tell anymore. It just kept happening. And I couldn't figure out why this story kept playing. And
Can you elaborate on that story?
so the story was, and still is, it will, always be for this, was I was a horrible people pleaser. After sobriety, I learned where this people pleasing came from. And It took me that long to figure it out. It was some trauma from my childhood with my father. The never good enough thing or never getting any attention. So I learned to seek that attention, positive or negative, from other people.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I couldn't deal with my stuff, life, whatever was going on. So I would seek more of that attention. And the way I would seek more of that attention was by drinking more, closing down the bar, buying people drinks. I was that type of person. I couldn't just have one. If we're going to have one, we're going to close the bar down, and I'm going to be buying shots just to keep people at the bar. So I didn't go home alone or leave early. It was like a comfort blanket that I could put on, knowing that if, I got my friends so drunk they couldn't drive home, they would have to hang out with me.
Wow.
And that's when I started to know that, like, this isn't right. Like, I got off work at, 3:00, and here it is, 2 a.m., and I'm still trying to force people to hang out with me. And I'm so drunk, I can't drive home. My friends can't drive home. So we'll go wander around in Denver. Maybe we'll get an Uber or whatever. We'll find food. Then I would wake up the next day and go, what did I just do?
Yeah.
That normal, do I need to make phone calls? What did I do last night? Do I need to text people? Did I make a fool of myself? And when I was younger, I never felt that. But now I started feeling that. And, the more I consumed alcohol, the more I would have those thoughts and those feelings. And that's when I start to go, okay, there's something changed here, and I'm not feeling good about myself anymore. And I couldn't really figure out what it was. So I had some, times where I'd quit getting high and drinking for some kind of goal, like say, 6 months or something like that. There was always some kind of goal in there, and I quit. Then, my reward was always, well, I can have a beer or I can get high, which now I know is not appropriate.
But at the time, it's like how our minds work, right? I'll reward myself with a little bit of it, a little bit of the thing I'm trying to completely get out of my life.
Exactly. It's like
the reasons.
Yeah. So it was always some, I like to run, so it'd always be like a race. And I'd just be like, well, after the race, I can, go back. I'll train really hard for the race. Then after the race, I'll give myself a treat. But I just remember like those times when I wasn't using, like how good life was, and everything would come back to normal and stuff was good and all that stuff.
How long would you go like these sober stints for?
Not very long.
Right.
I think the longest was maybe 4 months. Maybe 4 months. Then, I opened the door a little bit after a race I did, and I kind of was like, oh, I don't need this. And then I closed that door again, and I think I made it to about July. I don't remember how many times I used. It was probably a handful of times. But I remember I got back to July and just opened that door wide open and started using again.
Yeah.
And that was like one of the first times I was like, huh, that was interesting.
Yeah.
I kind of started recognizing it.
Yeah. Robbie, you strike me as a very reserved, kind of quiet guy. I wonder, when you were drinking, did your personality change at all? Or were you kind of just the similar, very introspective dude?
Yeah, my personality pretty much stayed the same. I would just feel better about myself,
Yeah.
so the filter would get turned off, and I would just say whatever I wanted to say at the time.
Right.
And I've always been the type of person to have like that close group of friends that I always hung around with that only knew about me, what I really did. Uh, if there was other people around, I would stay really quiet and keep away from them.
Mm-hmm. Were you one of those people that it was kind of difficult to tell if you were wasted or not, just because your mannerisms are very kind of not calculated, it's the wrong word, reserved, I guess.
100%.
Yeah,
100%. I mean,
I bet.
when I was, in high school, I would just be super high. No one would know. Then, you know, I could get high at work and no one would know except for some people that I would use with.
Mm.
But then the same thing with my drinking would be like, I learned how to put on a really good show.
Yeah. You and I are very similar in two ways. So the drinking, getting everyone wasted to hang out with you, like I know that's a tough thing to say out loud, but I'm with you on that one. I would do that kind of thing too. I was very insecure of myself, and invalidation from others was a constant in my life. It's all I seek, and that's another point that you mentioned too. Was like that when I was drunk, I was free. That's how I felt. And my true nature, my true personality, I guess, whatever, the elevated personality of when you're no inhibitions whatsoever. Sometimes, they come off as like a redeeming quality. And I love that part about drinking. So I can agree with you on that part. But then as we both know, as time goes on, that slowly deteriorates into, an alcohol use disorder, at least it did for me. So tell me about that part. So once you did those sobriety stints, and you chose to drink again, like what was did it spiral out of control quickly, or was it kind of just a slow, gradual burn?
It spiraled out of control very quickly.
Really
Very
interesting.
quickly. Like to the point, so before I moved here to Rapid City, I did Sober October, and I was like, I knew I was moving here in November, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna get a clean start in Rapid City. I'm gonna quit drinking and quit getting high. What tons of people doing Sober October, so I did it.
Good.
I moved out here, and I was like, you know what, I feel good, so I stayed sober. December came around, I had a few drinks, and it was okay. Like I told myself, I'll just have 2 beers at the brewery, and I kept to it. No problem there. Then, fast forward to the next year, I, got into a running group here, wanted to get back out on the trail, so I started running. First day after that run group, they met at the brewery after, and I was able to hold together and only had 2 beers. Well, that was about it. And this is like when I realized I have a problem, because after I opened that door again, like there was no control. It was bad to the point where I was scared.
Yes.
You
Yeah, I
know,
can relate to that.
Blacked out. I remember on my birthday, I blacked out. I walked home, left my keys in my bike. It was, I don't even remember. It was one of those ones where you wake up and go, how did I get home? And you're looking for everything. And that was kind of a gut check, was like, whoa, like I went from 0 to 100% in
Mm-hmm.
no time.
That's me too, man. So I did 125 days sober, and then the second that I went back, it was like worse than it was from the prior drinking, before the 125 days. I remember one time you just sparked a memory that I haven't thought of in forever. That's like really sad. Was, of all places to do this, I did it at a family like bowling thing. We were bowling, and my dad and my whole family was there, and I got absolutely wasted, and like to the point where the manager like had to come like pick me up, and like I don't even know how I got home, but I just thought of that, and that's just a weird feeling to think about that, weird memory like that. But I think my point of what I was getting at it's almost like when you go back to drinking from trying to quit, it's like your body and your mind are on board. But when you go and it hits your lips and you're back full force, it's almost like you're crying out in the inside because you're like hurting that you can't stop it on your own, you know? And I feel like I just came to that realization when you were telling your story that like that, when I did that, when I lashed out and got blacked out drunk and had to get kicked out of a bowling alley at a family outing, like that wasn't me, but that was never my kind of behavior. But clearly that was like a sign for a cry for help in a way, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So after you went from like 0 to 100, tell me about that. Like what was going through your head and everything?
So this was in September. I was questioning a lot of things and was like, here I am again, repeating that circle. This time it's just way, way worse than it's ever been before. Then, as every person that's addicted to something says, well, I'll just roll back in. I was like, well, I'll just drink on the weekends. All those things we do.
Yep, all those things. Yep. We try to control it. There's no controlling it. We try to tailor it back.
Yeah,
that's not gonna happen. Yeah.
So I remember I made it okay through the rest of September. Then October came. I had a trip to Colorado to run a race. Ran the race. Was pretty chill. Wasn't doing much. Then I came back to Rapid City. And that following week, I was going with some friends to the Sioux Falls area of South Dakota, and they were going to run a race. And I was just going to go have fun. Well, for some reason, my mind's like, well, you did something cool last week. You can just get wasted. And that's what I did. It was bad all day Saturday. It was maybe 9 or 10 in the morning till the bars closed that night. Super hungover, drove home the next day. Then I was like, this is a weird part because I don't even remember any of this, why did this happen? But that following week, I went to the bar every single night.
You don't remember it?
I don't remember it. I remember physically being there and being at the bar and drinking, but I don't know why I went.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have an answer for it. And
I feel like I never knew what the word bender meant until I actually woke up from one. You know what I mean? But like 3 days was gone, and I was looking at my surroundings, like on someone's floor or whatever, being like, what just happened? Like that was a bender. Like apparently that's what a bender feels like. You just do a bunch of different things that you just don't remember. Scary stuff, man.
That's a good point. I've heard that word, but I've never I just associated it perfectly with the bender.
Yeah, I know. I just think it's some scary stuff waking up out of a bender. I luckily didn't do that too much. My drinking was very very unique in the sense that I was a shut in. I just kept myself away from the world. I didn't want to deal with anyone. I didn't want to deal with anyone besides my booze. Because my booze was the thing that was my steadfast. That was the thing that protected me, even though it was just slowly killing me and then quickly killing me at the very end. But anyways, yeah. So so tell me about that. So you had the bender.
Yeah, I had the bender. Yeah, I just remember that whole week going to the bar every night, closing it down, waking up, feeling horrible at work, just waiting to get off, go do the same thing again. Then I remember that Sunday came around and, it was like one of those times where you check your bank account and you go, where did all that money go? And I blew through a lot of money in that little, week and a half bender that I had. And then that was definitely, like, I know everyone's rock bottom's different and, rock bottom's like a horrible thing the society puts out there that we all got to have a rock bottom. What we see on TV and what society portrays is, I don't think a lot of people's real rock bottom, right? And you can never take that rock bottom away from someone. I didn't kill anyone. I didn't end up in jail. I didn't hurt anyone, stuff like that.
My rock bottom yourself through a liver transplant.
Yeah, right. My rock bottom was that I couldn't deal with myself anymore, which is kind of weird to say because that's what was fueling my alcohol abuse, was I couldn't deal with myself. Then I came to this thought, well, I can't deal with myself being the way I am. And I told myself, well, I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit getting high. I'm going to quit, using cannabis. So Sunday was like bender day. I got high all day. Then Monday, new day, right? I didn't want to use. So that Monday came. Then I had something that my work happened to me that caused me to end up walking off a job, which I've never done.
That must have been pretty traumatic having to just leave. Did you just quit?
Yeah, I just walked off.
Really? And how
Yeah,
long did you work there for?
not very long. So that was kind
Okay.
of the weird thing. But,
But still, I
in my
mean,
adult life, I've
losing,
just,
going away from it, yeah, throwing away a job nowadays. I mean, that's really scary
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
it was, now that I look at it, it was a good thing. I wasn't getting treated well.
Yeah.
I got
Good.
hurt at
You're still,
work and was laying on the floor and no one checked to see if I was okay.
yeah, that's a reason to leave.
Yeah, yeah. So it was, it was kind of easy, So I was a couple days in. That was a Wednesday. It was a couple days in, and I remember talking to my mom, and she had just moved to Wyoming. She's like, "Why don't you just come hang out with me?" I'm like, "Well, I don't got a job." Okay, go down there, hanging out with my mom, and I remember it was a Friday, and she's like, "What do you want for get for dinner?" And then we decided to get Mexican food, and we're sitting there, and I'm like, "I want a margarita." So I ordered a margarita, and I remember a few drinks in, I looked at my mom and said, "This is going to be my last margarita I'm ever going to drink." And she said, "What?" I said, "I can't do this anymore." Then we had the conversation.
Yeah.
She drank some of the margarita with me, and she says, "If that's what you want." Okay. Very supportive. So on a Monday, I quit using cannabis. And on that Friday, I quit using alcohol.
Wow. Just cold turkey like that?
Cold turkey.
Wow. That must have been a really interesting moment from your mother's perspective. I was just thinking of it from her shoes. Like, she's probably so proud of you at the same time, right? That you're saying, okay, like I'm done with this. It can't be in my life anymore. But at the same time, she must have been like, wow, like I didn't, I didn't realize you had maybe an issue with this because you probably didn't show signs of it maybe around her, or did you?
No, no, you're 100% right. There was no signs. She would see me, get high and drink in front of her was never a big deal.
Mm.
My whole family on my mom's side, family parties, we drink and get high. It was just what we did type of thing. So, she's like, "I didn't think you had a problem." And I told her what was going on pretty much. She goes, "That doesn't seem like a problem to me." And I says, "It is a problem to me."
Mhm.
And, we as addicts, a lot of times when we try to explain ourselves to non-addicts or people that don't struggle with addiction, it's really weird, and they don't
Yeah.
understand it. That's okay. So that was the type of conversation, and then I just said, "I just need your support. I don't need you to understand. I just need your support. This is going to be a rough road for a while. I don't know what it looks like, but this is what I got to do."
That's really brave of you, man. Like to come to that self-actualization that this is no longer serving me. It's only making my life worse. And then to go to the, one of your most trusted sources, like everyone's mother, that's a great place to start. I did the same, a very different uh, situation as yours. I was basically on my deathbed, and and well, not my deathbed yet. That was months before, but on January 27th, 2023, so almost 2 years now, I got caught drinking. I brought it home because I was so sick from the withdrawals that I had to go out, get it, come back, and then drink it. And then I got caught drinking it from my wife, and then we got in a huge argument. And then next thing I know, I'm downstairs, and there's my dad with his, like, what's going on? And I lost it. I said, "Dad, I can't control this anymore. It's done. Like, I'm done. Can't." And that was it. That was the last drink I had. So in a sense, like, admitting it to our parents, very similar, but also, yeah, mine was a little more aggressive because it was a big blow up and I was already drunk. Yeah. So tell me about the next step. Like, what happened after that?
So this is where it gets interesting. Well, the only thing I knew was to stay sober, right? Like,
Yeah. And
that's
like, what does that look like? Like,
yeah, yeah,
do I have to cut people out? Like, what do I have to do? Right. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like, I had no clue, nothing at all. It's just like, stay sober. And so luckily I was, with my mom, and I hung out with my mom for a couple of weeks for those first couple of weeks. Always had some comfort, someone to talk to when I was, feeling super weird and all those things. From, not using cannabis, I couldn't sleep. So I'd lay awake, super bad sweats, super bad nightmares, all that stuff, to the cravings from the cannabis and the alcohol. Always when I felt something emotional I would just get high, not be able to do that anymore. And then, all those things. Then I like came back here to Rapid City and didn't have a job. So then was looking for a job. Then it was Christmas time. Went back. Me and my daughter went to my mom's. Hung out there for a little bit. Then I went to my dad's house in Utah, which brought up a lot of stuff, because then I started realizing where a lot of my pain came from.
Mm-hmm.
And
So this is during the holidays. You went to go visit your father with your daughter.
yeah, it was Christmas time.
Yeah. And then you started picking up because you were sober now. You could like pick up on these things. Is that what you're explaining to me?
Yeah, so I had this conversation with my dad and told him that I'm not going to get high and drink anymore. And my dad's been an addict, ever since I've been alive. Cocaine, alcohol, you name it. Now he's addicted to pharmaceuticals. He gets prescribed from a doctor, and he's been
like
addicted
Oxycontin or whatever.
Yep, morphine. All those opiates.
Yeah,
he's been on for years, and he was like, "You'll be okay. You just give it a few months, and you'll be able to go back to it." And when he told me that, I got really mad.
Yeah.
Because, and this is when I kind of started figuring out, I'm like, you haven't been there for me when I needed you, and now you're telling me that this decision I made, just give it a few months, and I'll be okay.
Oof, that's tragic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't know everything I know now, so it was I kind of just pushed it away, and I had my daughter there, and some, was doing some other stuff, and my dad's wife was really, really happy for me and super supportive. So
like,
she kind of heard that conversation and was kind of giving my dad a weird look, like, what are you doing? So we ended up getting stuck there because it snowed so bad. So they closed down the freeway.
Snowed in after
so they
that bomb.
Closed the freeway. And we got stuck there for a few extra days.
That's not uncomfortable after you had that conversation,
right? Yeah.
And then all he wants to do probably is drink and whatever.
Yep. Yeah, he was eating edibles to the point where he was just like making no sense.
Just a jellyfish on the floor.
Yes, exactly. And I'm like, yeah, it was, I can talk about it now and laugh about it, but I don't know how the hell I got through. I don't know how the hell I got through that. Like,
yeah, that's a tough situation, man. Yeah.
I mean, people, one thing I like to tell people when they first, go on this journey is, you don't know what it's going to look like on the other side. Just, go with it. And there's going to be times where you look back and you're going to be like, that was so cringe. And however you want to deal with that, that's fine. But you're going to learn so much about yourself, and just give it some time. And that's one of those moments. Yeah. So then I came back, just started doing a lot of self-work, meditating, journaling, all the stuff they tell us we're supposed to do.
Right. But the reason they tell us that stuff is because it actually has practical value to it.
It does.
I was an anti-journal or anti-meditation. I was anti all of it. And then I started like forcing myself to do it. And then now I can't stop talking about it. I love it so much. Although I have been slacking lately. I'll have to be honest with myself. The meditation aspect. I think it's just maybe the holidays was a little hectic. Nope, not an excuse. Did it again. Okay. Anyways. But yeah, no, there is definitely practical value to that. But yeah, it can come off as sanctimonious or preachy or cringe.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, so tell me about like that initial journey into sobriety for you, because I think that's always the best part. It's always either really crazy or just pretty chill. Or I'm curious to see what yours is. Like, what was your just going? Because you did it cold turkey. Did you join? I know you said you had like a journal and stuff like that. So you obviously were reading some kind of literature that told you to do that. But did you have a community or anything like that? Or you just by yourself?
So to take a step back, like I started getting really big into, like journaling and meditation back in like 2016. But I used to meditate and journal super high.
I did that too.
Yeah. So then I did a sober night.
Gibberish. This is genius. And I look at it the next day. It's like Taco eats football. No.
100%. Yep, exactly. So then, I was doing a sober and I hated it. Like I had a really hard time. So I didn't have my sister, which is younger than me, she decided to become sober about a month after I did. So she quit in December. So it was kind of weird how
That's huge.
it
Your
was
sister,
just
so she's
weird.
older. You're older than your sister?
Yeah, I'm older than my sister.
Oh, you're older. Okay, so big bro showing little
Yeah.
sis the ropes. Awesome.
And
But you're both starting at the same time.
yeah, exactly. So,
That's even better. That's even better. It's like a tag. It's a team. I love
yeah,
it. So yeah, how'd
we
that
were
go?
100% a team, right?
Yeah.
So she was my one, you know, my one and only community at that time. Um,
Hmm.
we would talk every day. We kind of made a thing. We'll talk every single day till our first year
That's
and
awesome.
all that. And she's still sober to this day. Um, so I
Congratulations
just
to sis. That's great.
yep, I
Shout
passed
out.
2 years in November, and she just passed her 2 years in December. So
Nice.
yeah,
Congratulations to both of you. That's awesome.
thank you.
Yeah. How were those 2 years? Were they tricky? Did you have any pitfalls?
So you've already noticed that I'm weird. So.
No, I like people like you. I like every kind of person that is a little different than me. I think that's fascinating that there's so many different personalities on this world. So each one has so much value. So please keep being you.
So I will. So when I tried so many times, right? And this time I did it for no one pushing me, no outside, nothing. It was just my time. And what I told myself is never again. Like I can never do this again. I can't drink. I can't use cannabis. Never again.
Mm-hmm.
I had to tell myself that that's what I'm doing and that's what I'll do for the rest of my life because I made a commitment to myself.
Yeah.
First and foremost, I made that commitment to myself. And if I let myself down one more time, as you know, I don't know what will happen. It will be
Yeah.
200% this time or whatever it is. And this
Yeah.
is something, I like to talk about is we always hear, well, what am I going to do when I get sober?
Mm-hmm.
I, and I can be an asshole about this. I'm like, I don't care what you do. Like, are you doing this for you or for someone else?
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing it for someone else, well, then you have to question that. But if you're doing this for you, you owe yourself this, and there shouldn't be any questions what I'm going to do when I'm sober. I
Well
had to
said.
turn that page, and I get to write. I close chapter 1, and I get to write chapter 2, and I get to write chapter 2 the way I want to write chapter 1 or chapter 2 because I
Mhm.
didn't get to write chapter 1 the way I wanted to.
That's really cool. I find that like with meditation, especially when we feel, because that's how I felt like in active addiction. I felt like I had no control when we always had control, but we maybe weren't equipped with the right necessary tools in the toolbox of the mind to handle those impulsivity actions that we do when we're trying to go for the booze or whatever substance you're on. And I noticed that with meditation, you can actually like trick your mind or train it. Trick's the wrong word. Train your mind to be like, no, 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 like I'm in control. You just kind of like come back to the present moment. Like who's in control? If like you're really gonna go grab that bottle, like no, you're the one in control. You make the calls, right? You
Yeah.
make the decisions, and that's hard. It's very difficult because the body wants what the body wants, the mind wants what the mind wants. But it's with mindful practice meditation, those things is absolutely really very helpful to me, at least when I'm getting those urges to just get centered again, get in my mind and focus on why I made this commitment to myself for life.
Yeah.
You don't want to let yourself down. People worry so much about uh, the perception of them instead of just doing the inner work and being like, okay, this is like, who am I doing this for? I'm doing it for me, right? So why would I make that decision? So when you said that you made that commitment, I'm doing it. And then is that when you got into running, or were you doing running prior?
I started running in 2010, so I was already running. Um,
Did you notice when you started to run with a clear mind and like a sober body, you started to improve your records and things like that?
this is no, so
That was a curveball. I didn't know you were going to say no there, but okay,
no,
I'm digging it now.
so I have a very addictive personality. And so once I got sober and I was running, I was having quite a bit of issues. Not so much on the run, but when I'd come back to the car. I like to trail run. So, I'm usually in the trees, in the mountains, off the beaten path where I don't see anyone. I would get back to the car, get in the car and start it and just have a complete anxiety attack.
Why do you think that was?
In the beginning, I didn't know. Then, I talked with some others and I started using running as a way to run from my problems.
So you were using like the metaphor,
100%.
doing it in real life. You were
Yep.
running from. I'm not laughing. I'm
No.
joking.
It's okay. You can laugh because
it is because it is a funny kind of double thing there. But yeah, so you were running. That's very interesting that you came to that self-realization.
So I, started running. When I started running, I had a family, a daughter, and, a great job. And there's a lot of times where I would choose running over them. I'd rather go spend the day in the mountains away from them, whatever I had to do for work or any of that stuff. Friends, it didn't matter. I'd rather go out and, be with other people like-minded or be by myself or with my dog. I was talking with a friend and he's also sober too and he's an addict. And he goes, "Are you running with any intention?" I'm like, "What do you mean intention?" He's like, "Just find something to run for." I'm like, I don't run for that. And he goes, "Well, you just keep running from nothing." He's like, "You're using your running now as a drug." And I went, "Oh, shit.
Got me.
Cross addiction. Now I'm using my running to numb the pain." So, long story short, I gave up running for quite a while.
Okay.
Just because.
I can see why. Yeah.
What was that?
I said I could see why. I mean, he just totally called you out on you're running from like your family, pretty much.
Yep.
So yeah, better, hone her in now, right?
Yep, exactly. And and a lot of people in society hear of these addicts, switching from their addiction to running, whatever, basketball, you can name any sport or anything like that, And, what I've learned now is just it's another cross addiction, right? It's another way to fight the pain, to run from the pain. I don't think it's healthy. Society likes to glamorize it as if it's healthy. I don't, because I felt that pain and I started running because I love to be in the mountains, to be out on the trail. That freedom I would get, the joy, all that I would get now was gone because I was sober. And, like every run would be like, I'd be thinking about things and all this other stuff, and they were never like positive things. And, I asked that guy, I'm like, "Well, what do you mean by intention?" And he's like, "Well, maybe just look at the trees. Find joy in the trees or something in the trees or a flower." I'm like, I started laughing at him, right? I'm like, pretty much being mindful, right? He was telling me to be mindful. And I've done all this stuff in the past. Like, I like to look at the scenery, but I've never like thought about the intention of that or my breathing or anything like that. So, I just took some time off. I'm getting back into running now. Like, I just remember it was a couple months ago I went for a run and like it just clicked. And, I was over that using running part as something to run from, really to run from. And now, my running's totally different. And, to answer your question that you asked, now I feel the benefits.
Can I ask how, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I don't want you to skip over this. Can I ask how your running's different now?
So
I know you mentioned like being aware of like the trees and everything and being like, present and this is great, but like how is it other than that? How has it made your life better? Or you run differently is the word.
It's like the only way I can like an alter ego. I had to kill that ego. I had to let go of that old me as a runner. The person I identified was a runner. All those things that I brought with me into sobriety with my running, I had to let them go too. I had to get rid of them. And, when we become sober, we're a different person. We know it, in the inside we are different. Outside people may not recognize it, but we know we're different. And that was part of that thing, was like, I was trying to hang on to that old me through my running with my ego, with what I've accomplished and what I've done. that
Mhm.
type of thing. And when I finally was able to just dissolve that and like draw the line in the sand and say, this was the old you runner, this is who you are now, then it was like I started over again, to tell you the truth. Because I
Yeah.
was pretty much starting over again. A lot of stuff just fell back into place from, muscle memory and that kind of stuff. But my brain was
Mhm.
new and I was just out there for the fun of it, hanging out with my dog, friends, the scenery. Like it was like a fresh breath of air every single time.
Mhm.
Where before I was like stuck in a smelly gym and I kept smelling that same breath over and over again
Yeah.
and I couldn't get rid of it. Now it's like I wish I could have captured like I don't know how that run because it was like I remember telling Steve like I sent him a message like I feel free again.
Yeah.
It was like one of those magical.
Something just like a transcendent run.
Exactly. What's when you get into a good meditation and you go somewhere else. That's kind of what it felt like
Oh,
on that
actually.
run.
Yeah.
I was just so happy. I had so much joy, and it was kind of weird to say this, but it was like I was rebirthed. Like
Yeah.
I was.
That's not weird.
It just feels weird for me saying that. I don't know why, but that's what it felt like. I was just like, boom, you're back.
That's the weirdest thing you've said, and you wouldn't want to watch some of the other episodes of the podcast because I just say very odd things that most people wouldn't pay mind to. But no, I am with you, man. Like when I woke up and I was still alive, I was like, okay, this is like I am now going to be a different person. That's basically what happened, and that's kind of what's continuing to happen. I'm just very different now. I don't know who that guy was. Like I remember him. I remember where I was and all that stuff for the most part. But once I woke up with that second chance at life, I'm like, I am not fucking this up. Like this is my second go at it, and I'm making the best of it. So that's when I started the channel. So I can relate. So now you have a podcast, my friend,
Yep.
that you co-host, right?
Yep.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's called Golden Hour Adventures. We started it back in September of 23. It'll be 3 years this year, so
Nice.
maybe 22. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I was checking out. You have a ton of episodes, so you've
Yeah,
been
yeah,
doing it for a while.
yeah. We release one every Monday, or you know, podcast kind of morph, and I'm sure we'll morph again. So in trail and ultra running, the golden hour is the last hour before the end of a race. So they call it the golden hour. So like in a 100-mile race, whatever the cutoff time is, say it's just the cutoff time's 10 a.m., 9 a.m., like everyone comes back out to watch the last people finish because they've been out on the course the longest, depending on, the cutoff time, anywhere from, 30 hours, 36 hours. Some, races are 48 hours. So me and the co-host, Justin, we wanted to name a Golden Hour Ventures because we wanted to give everyone a platform or a place to tell their story. We wanted to get everyday people just doing cool stuff. And in the beginning, we had, a lot of, we had hunters, cyclists, we had runners, we had hikers, skiers, that kind of stuff. We've kind of just fallen into where trail and ultra scene. So most of our guests are trail runners that have run, ultras, um, anywhere from 50K, over 200 miles. And
Yeah.
now there's 300-mile races coming out this year. So that's our thing. We just get people on, and, Justin always says I'm the one that asks all the hard questions. As you can tell, I'm a very intense person and like to make people tick because
Yes.
that's,
Yes. Same.
I just like that. It's cool. That's who I am. Justin's
Mm-hmm.
more of the comedian and likes to get the laugh in. So, but yeah, Golden Hour Adventures.
Yeah. So ever since you've been sober, what's your favorite part about being sober?
My favorite part, I have more than one, but my favorite part really is being present.
Huh.
Who was not present for so many dang years. Like I was off in
Yes.
La La Land,
Mhm.
and now I can sit in a room with people I don't even know, be uncomfortable or awkward or whatever, and I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yeah, and you're okay with it.
Yeah.
It's like their problem. Yeah, it's their problem if they don't like a quieter guy. That's really cool, man. I like that. I like that you said that answer because that is something I can relate to 1,000%. Man, is the gift of presence, just being completely aware and the clarity of knowing what you did the night before, knowing that I get up early. Like, I never got up early. You know, I love to get up early because it's fun to start a new day. That's exciting and new, and who knows what can happen, right? What blessings may come. And I never thought that way. I completely was a pessimistic person, and I was a taker. I wasn't a giver. And now I'm just trying to be like the biggest giver I can. So that's what I do now. And I'm glad that you have your podcast niche too, because I'm sure that's a huge niche that you're delving into, the trail runner. I see that more often than I've ever seen it in the past since I've been alive, past like 10 years or so. It's really big.
Yeah, I mean, and when I started back in 2010, I had like a little boom with the Born to Run book. Then it kind of boomed for a while, but now it's growing at a very fast rate. And the cool thing about the podcast too is, sometimes we get guests and they don't share till they're on the podcast that they're actually in recovery themselves.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we've had quite a few, people come on and talk about their recovery journey. And it's, I'm sure is when you open yourself up, you're bound to get something back. You may not know what that is, but just some of the friendships I made through the podcast, if they're in recovery or not, it's just like, it feels so good.
Yeah. I love it too. I love meeting people. Yeah. I just love meeting new people, and especially if I can do it through the podcast like this, it's even better.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just good to get something out there to people. We have a lot of stuff that we, talk about if you're new to a trail run, or we get guests on that, we talk about stuff, but just to be able to give back then just what we get back.
Right.
It's so great. It's
paying it forward.
Yeah. It's so powerful. And, sometimes it brings tears to my eyes because I have met some people that I would have never met that are lifelong friends. And they will support me through thick and thin. And I was so caught up when I was not sober about who I was, and what I portrayed, who I wanted to be. And now that we're sober and we get to do it however we feel.
Pretty cool.
It's so
pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. My whole life, I was putting on different masks, and I'll never forget this, like one, it's kind of corny quote, but it's not really, it's actually pretty deep. A man who has two faces eventually forgets which one is real, or something like that. But when you're putting on too many different personalities and you're trying to please everyone, like you and I were, that's when you can get really lost. And that's what happened to me. I didn't know who I was. I just didn't know who I was for a good 10 years of like straight boozing, because I was so lost and I was so disgusted in who I became instead of who I knew that I had the potential to become. And then once I got sober and that shift and that focus shifted to the channel and everything, that's when things started to grow and started to get better. So kudos to you, my friend, for sharing your story and to getting to where you are and to having this great podcast. And now you're very more mindful of who you are.
Yes. Right? Thank you.
You're very aware of who you are. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we jump off?
No, I'm good. I just want to thanks for the opportunity. I could talk about recovery all day, every day.
Yeah, I love it too.
Something
maybe you and I will jump on Steve and Julie's podcast one day together.
We should.
That'd be cool.
We should. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll tell them about it. So before we jump off, Robbie, where can people reach you?
I don't do too much social media. You can follow my podcast. It's Golden Hour Adventures on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram, Runs These Hills 605. Let me make sure I got that right, because I always forget.
I usually track it down. If you don't get it right, I'll track it down, double check it, and put it in the show notes.
Yeah, you can put it in the show notes. But
yeah,
that's about the only places I'm kind of on social media.
Yeah. You seem like an analog guy, not a digital guy. But you do have a lot of cool equipment in the back there, man. I'm not gonna lie. Do you play the drums?
Those are my daughters. Those are my daughters.
Here's the daughters.
Yeah.
Well, good for her. I'm sure that's.
I see him back there
when you're trying to.
I see him back there, and I'm like, I need to learn how to play those. So I think I'm gonna try to learn how to play them this year.
You should. That's it. There you go. This is a New Year's resolution for you that you just found right now.
Yep.
Well, thanks, buddy. Robbie, thank you so much again for coming on. And I hope everyone out there has a very blessed 2025. And if you're just getting started, stay with it. Just don't think of the whole month. Just think of today, because if you think of the whole month, you tend to burn out. So just take it minute by minute, honestly, if it gets to that point. But don't give up on yourself, because you're doing it for you, like we were just talking about. But God bless you, everyone. Take care, and be on the lookout for many more episodes coming soon in 2025.